Hey guys, and welcome back to another video in this week's Java data structures tutorial. So in this video, we're really going to just focus on one new type of stream. So we're still working on streams because streams are such an important concept that so many big companies are working on now. So we're going to spend a lot of time in videos to just talk about streams. We're slowly getting more and more complicated. So in this video, we're just going to be talking about one example. It should be super quick and super easy, and that is just about importing files. So just a quick review. Last video, we talked about our arrays, as in we would create our own arrays inside of while creating the stream, or we would create an array and then import those data values into our stream. So we took it a step up from just basic, normal, easy streams. And so in this video, we're going to focus on importing our sources, but from a text file outside of our main.java file. So should be another new process to think about. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's go to REPL it, and then I'm going to create a new REPL, a Java REPL, and create. So the first thing that I'm going to do is actually show you guys how to create a new text file. Now, some of you guys might know what's going on if you've ever done HTML or CSS, but for Java, we've never done this before. So this is brand new information. What we're going to do is in our files, we have main.java. That is currently where we are writing all of our code. What we want is another file, a txt, a text file. So we have two buttons over here. We have this button that says add file and this button that says add folder, and then our three dots. So we're going to go ahead and click on the button that says add file, and we're going to give it a name. So I'm going to say text. Actually, I feel like I shouldn't say text.txt. Just say data.txt. TXT meaning for text file. This should pop up and you should see these like paragraph notation sort of thing. So we know that is going to be our file. I think I accidentally didn't add it. So data.txt, enter. And now we have our text file. So notice how previously we were working on this code right here. Now we're going to switch over to this txt file, and we're just going to first hand give it some sources, so some data to later on import into our stream. So what I did in this example was I did some singers. Well, I don't know if I share the same music taste as you guys, so I'm not really sure, but let's just go ahead and give it a shot. I've recently been actually kind of obsessed with like old songs, as in not like old songs, but like 2000s, 2010s, right? I don't really know, but J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez, love her. Pitbull is really good. Taylor Swift, classic. Taylor Swift, all my Swiftie fans out there, I love you too. What else? I'm really running out of idea. Who do I listen to? Let's go look at my list. When I was making it, I had a lot of time to listen, to think. Dua Lipa, Beyonce, Ariana Grande. I don't really listen to Justin Bieber. Dua Lipa, Beyonce, and then Ariana Grande. I feel like I should give one more just for good measure. Oh, Olivia Rodrigo. Her Good For You and all of that stuff, it was quite a long phase for me. Okay, so now that we have our text files, we just wrote all of the names and then clicked enter, so that we have names all on each separate line. We are ready to start coding, right? So we have all of our previous preparation stuff done. Now we can get into it. So a couple of things that we have to do is we are going to import java.util.star. And we also, just for good measure, guys, java.util.stream.star. Now, since we are working with files, I do want to bring to your attention that we are going to be importing two other things that we have not used before and that are going to be very important for our code today. And that is java.nio.file.star and java.io.io exception. I believe those two are the ones. Yes, there we go. So they look like this. The first one is basically the library that works with us when we import the file over, right? We need a library to help us with that. The other one is IO exceptions. So this is just something that handles our exceptions, our errors, and we're actually going to probably be using a lot of this later on. So this IO exception idea should become a norm. So let's go ahead and import these in. java.nio.file.star import java.io.io exception. And then a couple things, exception. I feel like I spelled that right, but I'm also a little unsure. IOE, these are all capitalized and the rest is lowercase. So just something to be aware of there. So now that we've imported everything, we're going to go ahead and create our stream. And I want you guys to take a look at this really quickly and notice how we end this right here. So basically, we're going to create the stream and upload the data first. And then we're going to separately manipulate the stream. So we're not going to do it all at once. Sometimes in our previous examples, like this one, we did it all at once. We created it, gave it the data, and then manipulated it all in one chunk, essentially. Now we're splitting it up. We are importing the file data into our stream first, and then we're going to stop, and then we're going to separately manipulate it. So there is a little bit of extra stuff to memorize here in capital lines, so just something we need to memorize. We're going to go ahead and say stream, string, because this is going to be a stream, right? And these are going to be artists, and we're going to set it equal to files.lines.path.get, and then in quotation marks in the parentheses, we're going to give it data.txt, and then we're going to do a semicolon. So basically what I've done here is I have told it to go to the files and then gave it the path, and I basically told my code exactly where to find my file. I've told it exactly where the file is, exactly what the file name is called, and exactly what data it should be bringing into my stream. So we have artist, stream, string, artists, files.lines, paths.get, data.txt. I'm not sure why we have a little red line there. I'm sure it'll work out fine in the end though. No worries there for sure. So then after that, I'm going to go ahead and separately manipulate my artist stream. So I'm going to say artists. And then I'm going to go ahead and just use my functions. Now, what functions did I use in my example here? I did sorted, I filtered it, and then I printed them all out. So essentially what I did in this example is I sorted them, which we know was going to reorder them into a new order of alphabetical. And then we're going to say, only take the ones that are greater than 4 in length. So for example, J-Lo would not work because that's only 3. And then for everyone that meets these filtered requirements, print it out. So dot sorted, and then we're going to say dot filter, and then use a lambda function, any value where the length is going to be greater than 4. Actually, let's say 5. And then we're going to say for each of these that work, system.out, : print ln. And then semicolon. Why? Because this is our terminal function. For each is a terminal function. One more thing that I'd like to bring in that is new, and that is our close. So sometimes we need to close our stream. We don't always, technically you don't have to, but we usually should for good measure. So I'm just going to go ahead and outside of my stream here say artists.close and then put a semicolon. So it looks like it's still giving me this cannot be resolved or is not a field error. Let's go ahead and run our code, see what happens, and then go from there. So we're going to run our code really quickly. Okay, so identifier expected. Let's give it a second and let's see what happened here. So take a second and let's see what went wrong. Okay, so it is called data.txt, and match-wise, we did import java.util.stream.star. So let's see, a couple more things that we need to check, and then we will come back and see what went wrong. So after we take a second to go back and look, this is actually a really simple mistake that I believe most of us probably should realize, but I did not. But that's totally okay. So it should be files.lines path.get. We do not need a dot in front of our parentheses. So it should just be files.lines paths.get. So essentially what we want to do is we also have another thing that we forgot to do, and that is we forgot to throw our IO exception. We have not used this IO exception, and it's really important that we get into the habit of saying throws IO exception. So once we throw the IO exception, you'll notice that our red line disappeared. So it's super duper duper important to remember that, because if we do not add the part that says throw IO exception, then our code doesn't work. So two things to take note of from our video. Files.lines path.get, we do not need a period in front of the parentheses. Another thing, when you import your IO exception, just as a good habit, go ahead and add in the words throws IO exception in your file, in your function here as well before you forget, because that part is super duper important, right? So now if we go ahead and run our code, we're going to see that it's going to return us a lot of different values. It's going to return us Ariana Grande, Beyonce, Dua Lipa, Olivia Rodrigo, Pitbull, and Taylor Swift. So that's 6. Which ones did not get included? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so all of them except for JLo, right? And why not JLo? Because JLo is 3 letters long, and we only wanted to want the ones where the length was greater than 5. Now, obviously, if we said length is greater than 10, then that would narrow down our list by a lot more. So if we ran our code again, we would see that it's going to give us only 3, Ariana Grande, Olivia Rodrigo, and Taylor Swift. Right, so hopefully, guys, this video makes sense. Let me scroll back up again. Key things to remember: we are importing 2 new things, one of which is very, very important that we will be using for a lot in the future, and that is the IO exception, because this is basically, in a way, like its own error handling, and you need to have that in order for your code to work, as you saw in my example. Small error, this might just be a me thing. Some of you guys probably won't ever make this mistake. And it's just, you do not need anything in between lines in this parentheses. The rest, sorted, we know that it's going to sort it alphabetically. Filter is going to filter out the ones that are only greater than 10 in length and then print them all out. So yeah, hopefully this video makes sense, guys. This was our first time working with importing a new file from outside of the file that we're working in. And so next week, in next week's video, we're going to be talking about a little bit more complicated data. So this data was very simple. Next week, we'll be working with a little bit more of harder data. So just a little bit harder and working with a little bit more in the filtering part. So yeah. That's it for this week's videos. I will see you guys in next week's videos. Bye, guys.